Hi, everyone. I just wanted to go over the lesson plan template in case we run out of time in class. And your assignment is to write a lesson plan that incorporates pretend play. So I have a link to the template here on the last slide of our slides tonight. If you click it, you will get to that link. And I'm going to go to my sample lesson plan that incorporates pretend play here and walk you through it. So here's the name, Raking Leaves Pretend Play is the name of my lesson. So subjects, we always need more than one because again, it's interdisciplinary. So more than one. So I said ELA and health and phys ed. You'll see why in a minute. If I was using the early childhood domains, it would have been the language domain and the physical domain. So my topic is raking leaves, and my unit plan, my big idea is a study of plants. My essential question is what happens to leaves when they fall from trees? And the grade level is pre-K. Resources are things where you got the lesson from, not what you're going to use to teach it. Where did it come from? And I am saying that it came from the district curriculum guide. Here are my standards. Since this is pre-K, they're from the New Jersey Preschool Teaching and Learning Standards. Attend to tasks for a period of time, engage in pretend play, use objects and props to develop spatial and coordination skills. Here are my learning targets. And you may have learned in one of your other classes that a good learning target has 4 elements: the audience, which will always be students for us; the behavior, what do we want students to know or be able to do by the end of the lesson; the condition, that's the circumstances where we know the behavior is complete, like after doing something; and the degree, that's what makes it measurable. So I said students will be able to engage in dramatic play materials for a minimum of 5 minutes after listening to Red Leaf, Yellow Leaf, a book by Lois Ehlert. So what do we want them to do? Engage in dramatic play. Our audience is students. The condition is after listening to the read aloud, and measurable a minimum of 5 minutes. Same thing here. Students will be able to develop gross motor skills by raking a minimum of 20 fabric leaves off the carpet. Students will be able to verbally make a minimum of 1 connection between the story and real life. So universal design for learning or knowledge of students is where you put information in about specific students in your classroom. So I made up some information. I said that student AB has an IEP. He has difficulty attending to story time. So he'll be allowed to sit on a squishy cushion on his chair instead of the carpet. And then student CD is an English language learner. And prior to story time, I'm going to read it to him in Spanish so that he has the background before hearing it in English. And student EF has difficulties with self-regulation. So when she's using the rake, the para is going to stay near her and will remove the rake if needed. And then it also asks that you identify some possible misunderstandings. And I said, some students may not understand that leaves only fall during one time of the year, and this will be reinforced while reading the book. Next is my assessment plan. You can't just put observe in a lesson plan because you have to document learning. So I am going to observe in this case, but I'm going to document it with a checklist. And here's my checklist. Can the student control the rake to collect some of the leaves? Yes or no? How long was the student interested in the activity? And I'll fill in the minutes. Did the student return to the book Red Leaf, Yellow Leaf in the library center? This would be during center time. Yes or no? How many leaves was the student able to rake off the carpet? And I would record that number. And the student made a connection between the book and real life during the class discussion. Yes or no? And then I have to show how I'm going to differentiate this assessment for individual students. So AB will only have to attend for 2 minutes. CD can make that connection in Spanish, and EF will receive some extra positive reinforcement for appropriate behavior while raking. The other thing that we're asked to do is include some possible feedback to students. So feedback, according to EdTPA, is defined as a reference to prior learning or a strategy to address an individual learning need. So I said, hey, do you remember how I showed you how to hold the rake before? Or I might model it. Try holding it like this. Or what did we say this book reminded us of? Do you want to go look at the anchor chart to remind yourself? And for students who struggle to rake, they'll be, because then we have to also include next steps based on our assessment results. So for students who struggle to rake, they'll be given an opportunity to rake squishy balls instead of the leaves. And when their coordination improves, then we'll move to the leaves again. Lesson rationale must be included. You must say, why am I doing this lesson and why now? So as you can see, I said it's part of our plant study. The activities encourage students to develop their imagination. The dramatic play materials and activities were available throughout the study. Students will understand that trees are another type of plant that has a life cycle similar to flowers in the garden. They'll make connections between a story read alone in their own lives. We also have to justify with principles from research or developmental theory. And I have a link right here. I'm going to click on it right now to show you this link because I love it. This was developed for EdTPA. And when I scroll all the way down here, I see, here they are, lots of different theorists that I could use to justify my lesson. So you can pick any of these that make sense. You can always also use any of the ones that are in our textbook as well, or our textbook authors, and cite that. So that would be fine. So I said that this lesson is aligned to Albert Bandura's theory of social learning because students will learn through observing others, building their self-efficacy, and by encouraging exploration, which all go along with Bandura's theory of learning. We have to provide examples of how they'll engage in multimodal learning. So I spell it out. It seems a little boring or basic, but you need to spell it out too. The lesson will engage students in visual learning as they look at the illustrations in the book. It will engage students in auditory learning as they listen to the book. It'll engage students in tactile learning as they feel those fabric leaves. And it'll engage them in kinesthetic learning as they practice raking those leaves themselves. So this lesson, then we have to explain how it's connected to prior learning, maybe to personal, interests or cultural aspects of our students. So I said this lesson is connected to prior learning because students previously learned about the life cycle of a flower, which is similar to the life cycle of a tree. In addition, this lesson is connected to the school and community because the story is about a maple tree, and there's a maple tree on school property and many more in town. So here's my model of instruction. I'm going to start with whole group instruction when we read the story, and then it's self-instruction while students are in centers and are practicing their raking leaves. Here's my subject-specific language: leaf, rake, and life cycle. That's your academic vocabulary. You have to include supports, how you're going to differentiate it for students. So I said supports will include picture cards of the words with the word on the back, and student CD will have the word in English and Spanish. Then you also have to explain how will you promote the development of language and literacy in this lesson. And I said I will capture students' interest before I read the book. I will introduce the vocabulary words while I read. I will reread it in small groups to students who are struggling with language and literacy, and I will read it in Spanish to CD prior to the whole group read aloud. So here's my instructional materials: the rake, the fabric leaves, and the book. And here are my procedures, and we use the 5 E's. The first E is engage, which is where you capture their curiosity. Explore is when they begin an activity that will support this exploration. Explain is where they get an opportunity to explain what they've learned. Extend is when they take it to a new level, and evaluation is really just the assessment piece. We also use the do and say method of writing our procedures. So for do, you tell me what you're going to do, like introduce the book to the students. Say is exactly what you'll say. You won't do this all the time when you're a teacher, but you should do it when you're student teaching. It's a great habit to get into, and it helps you really think through ahead of time what you'll say to students. So here I'm introducing the book to the students. In the engage section and explore, I'm reading it to them. And explain, I'm asking some comprehension questions and we're discussing the book. In Extend, I'm spreading those fabric leaves out and I am showing them how to rake. And then I'm probably sending them off to centers where some of them will choose to rake. And my evaluation is that I'm going to observe them with that checklist that was in the assessment section of the lesson plan. Those are the early childhood instructional methods just defined for you below. So anyway, that is how I plan a lesson, and I hope that it helped you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.